Hello, this is Wes Bridel, and this is another Kingdom Calling Economic Update. And I'm going to shoot, looks like 5 videos, just a series of videos on what's been going on in the markets and the world economy over the last couple weeks. All of these videos are updates to the coming storm video, which we put out a little over a year ago. If you haven't seen that, that's more important than any of these videos. It's a free video you can go watch. There's a link right near this video where you can go and do that. That gives you the big picture of what's going on. It's interesting to look back now because many of the things we talked about have already happened, but the biggest things are just now coming. We're going to talk here about just what's been going on in the past couple of weeks, and I'm going to focus on these first 2 videos just on what's been going on in the economy, real estate, stock market, that sort of thing. So jumping in, first we have really some pretty amazing news. President Obama came out and said that the U.S. government is going to get out of the mortgage business. That's pretty phenomenal. The problem is it's kind of impossible at this point for them to do that. The government underwrites 90% of the mortgages out there through the government-sponsored entities, and if they're not writing those mortgages, who is? Most people can't afford mortgages the old-fashioned way. Most banks wouldn't write them. So, I like the idea. I'm not sure how it's going to work. Home prices fell for the 53rd consecutive month in November. And this might be an old article, and it's even more since then. This is now longer than the Great Depression fall that we saw, and this is the 26% down across the nation is more deeper cuts than what we saw in the Great Depression. And the second wave of declines that we're seeing is actually accelerating. So not really good news in real estate, as we've been talking about for quite a while. 2010 saw record foreclosures, 2.87 million. And they're actually, at the beginning of the year, they kind of stopped a lot of foreclosures because of some legal issues. So the number would have even been higher. 157 bank failures in 2010. Moving on to the stock market, the dividend yield is less than 1.8% right now on the S&P. That typically is a sign of a market correcting. There's been a lot of signs like that. The market hasn't been allowed to correct, so it's hard to say when exactly that will next happen, but that's typically a sign that the market is overbought. There's talk in the government about changing the law so states can go bankrupt. It's a pretty complicated and difficult thing. If the states are allowed to go bankrupt, that gives the states more bargaining power with these unions. The unions basically control our government in so many ways now, and the states feel like they can't do anything about it. If the states can threaten bankruptcy, then they can get the unions to cut back on what they have demanded from them and been promised by the states. On the other hand, if the states start going bankrupt or can go bankrupt, that hurts the bond market. Bond prices, bond interest rates could go way up, and so that could be a dangerous game. It'd be interesting to see what happens there. Russia has announced price controls. Again, this is a dangerous thing. If we talked about the 30s a minute ago, these are things that did happen in the 30s and the Great Depression. These are things that typically happen and world economy shuts down. We're seeing more signs of this. David Rosenberg put out an interesting piece, and I'm not going to read it all for you, but he showed the similarities between Obama's State of the Union recently and President Hoover's comments in the early 1930s about how everything's okay, everything's going to get back together, going to be fine. I remember one comment from Hoover was some people showed up about the problems, and he said, "Oh, you're 6 months too late. Everything is fine now." And so it was just startling to read President Obama's comments and Hoover's comments and how identical they were. And of course, we can look back and see Hoover had no idea things were going to get much, much worse. And as we've been saying for quite a while, the same is true of Obama in America today. Okay, global food prices rose 25% in 2010 across the board. They are up so far in 2011. There's no sign of this stopping. We are printing so much money. You can't print this much money and act like there's not going to be an effect to that. Of course there is, and we're seeing it in food. January food price increases for corn was 7.76%, for wheat 5.63%, rice up 10%, hogs up 10%, sugar up 5.64%, orange juice 3.33%, cotton up 17%. So huge. This is just in 1 month in January, on top of the big increases in 2010. There's no let up in sight for these things. We've seen food riots worldwide. Those are continuing around the world. It's going to get really serious when rice really skyrockets. A good portion of the world, I think most of the world, lives on rice as a daily staple. When the cost of rice really goes through the roof, there's going to be a lot of angry people worldwide. And because rice prices haven't gone up so much dramatically, yes, the United States, they're planting a lot less of it. The U.S. farmers have planted the least amount of rice since 1989. So a big pullback because they're not getting paid for it, and they're moving to other crops where they're getting paid. Well, what that means is rice will be the next one to skyrocket. Most U.S. food is processed, and companies hedge their positions. So you've definitely seen it in the grocery store. The price of food has gone up. We haven't felt it like people in a lot of the world, because I think the statistic is across the board in America, 6% of Americans' money go towards food. And whereas in other countries it might be half of their money goes towards food. Well, if half your money is going towards food and food prices go up 10%, that's devastating to you. If food prices go up 10% and you're only putting 6% of your money into food, well, now it's 6.6%. You can cut back somewhere else. So we're feeling it. We're not feeling it as much as other countries, but also we don't spend most of our money on direct commodities. Most of our money is not going into big bags of rice. Most of our money is buying processed foods. These companies are able to do a couple things. For one, they hedge their positions. So they make money on their hedging, even though the cost of their commodity that they make their food out of is going up. That usually is about 6 months out. So what we're seeing is we'll start to see that over the next few months. Those hedges disappear and they'll have to raise prices. We've seen some major companies already say they are raising prices. But also these companies are able to be squeezed on their margins. If they've got a profit of, say, 20%, profit margin of 20%, and price of the food that they're making it increases 10%, well, they can squeeze their profits down to 10% before they pass it on to you. But they can't squeeze it more than 20%, and eventually it does get passed on to you. So we've seen in this country some of the price increases, but it's going to get a lot worse. So just giving you a heads up on that. And authoritarian governments are beginning to stockpile foods. So again, many people around the world see it. I don't think many people in this country are taking it very seriously yet, but this is a very real thing that's happening out there. I didn't mention two of the companies that were just in a particular article I read, Tyson and ConAgra, have already announced increases in prices of their products. Corn prices have gone up considerably, and corn affects just about everything. Your Doritos chips are made out of corn. Your chicken is made out of corn. That's what they feed it with. Your hogs. So a lot of things that we eat are directly impacted by the price of corn. That's the first video. I'm going to cut this one off and go ahead and shoot another one. Again, if you haven't seen the coming storm video, I highly recommend that you do that. It's free and it's really important to you and your family. And I'll see you in the next video. Thanks and God bless you.